So you planned out your garden for the year, pre-filled all your pots and trays, planted all those lovely seeds, and had near perfect sprouting success. That's super awesome. Congrats. You're on your way. Unfortunately, though, that's also the easiest part. You see, seeds are going to sprout in just water. No special care is necessary for germination, as it's dictated purely by moisture and temperature. It's the 2 subsequent periods of growth after sprouting that's really going to govern the success of our season. The establishing of the initial root system to support those young plants, and then the growth later on as the true leaves start to form. In other words, the first 4 to 6 weeks of growth after sprouting. In most cases, we're sowing our seeds indoors early, about a month to a month and a half before we're going to move them out into the garden, before that last spring frost date. So as the pieces of the puzzle fall into place, the timelines are starting to make a lot more sense. Today, let's dive into that intermediate care of seedlings and look at the 6 variables that can boost our success. Don't stop now, because once we solve this part, it should be smooth sailing to our summer gardens. As we saw previously, we took our last spring frost date, worked backwards 4 to 6 weeks, and planted all of our summer seeds early. It gives us a head start on the season when it's simply too cold outside to plant. And for those crops, such as these tomatoes here, that require a certain amount of warm days to reach maturity, it's actually a necessity. So like we said, we germinated our seeds in warm, moist conditions, and they all came up beautifully. But what now? What are the next steps? Now is when we truly earn our stripes as gardeners. There's 6 parameters, 6 variables that we need to master to grow these guys into the best transplants possible. They kind of go in order, so let's get into it. First up, let's take those warm germination temperatures down a notch. Make that 10 notches. While most of our seeds germinated best at 80 degrees Fahrenheit or even higher, once they get 1 to 2 sets of true leaves, we take those temperatures down to 70 degrees Fahrenheit or even slightly below. It seems drastic, but it really does help. The cooler temperatures is going to moderate that growth, even out the root and shoot ratios, and prevent lush, fragile seedlings. And although true hardening off of our early indoor plants happens much later on in the process, we're still going to see benefits of those cooler temperatures. By decreasing our temperatures now, we're getting the plants set up. We're getting them used to the types of conditions they're going to be experiencing when we put them out in the garden. Our second parameter follows those drops in temperatures with an increase in light. Indoors, our plants are stretching for every photon possible, and it's really easy to give them too little light at this stage, especially since we're also trying to keep the temperatures cooler. Fortunately, advances in LED lighting technology has allowed us to emit maximum UV wavelength while maintaining cooler temperatures. For all but onion starters, a solid 14 hours on, 10 hours off works great. Give those plants as much light as you can. It's important. As your seedlings grow, the leaves may begin to intertwine, overlap, and generally crowd each other out. It's great that your plants are growing so well, but these kind of stifling conditions for the leaves is not good for the plants. The young plants need air. Their leaves need to breathe. If you can space the seedlings out, that works, but a simple fix is often just a small fan running over the leaves for a few hours a day. Keep that air circulation moving. It makes a huge difference. Not only that, once again, we're bridging those conditions that these plants are going to soon face in the outside world. Okay, we've talked about temperature, light, and air. What's logically next? That's right, moisture. Just as our seeds needed water to sprout, all plants need moisture to survive. The issue with seedlings in the hands of a new grower is too much. Too much love, too much attention, too much thinking that the plants always need something from us. New growers will often kill their seedlings with too much water. I've honestly seen it too many times to count. Overwatering is going to do two things. One, with proper drainage, it's simply going to leach everything out of the soil, leaving the plant with nothing to use for nutrients. That's fixable and generally reversible. Now, without the proper drainage, the other thing it's going to do is drown your plants. And that's not fixable. Left too long in standing water, the soil goes anaerobic, and the plants could soon perish. Water the plants as they need it, which may be as little as once a week. Speaking of nutrients, there comes a time where we're going to have to feed our young plants, such as these young tomatoes here. Once you start seeing a little bit yellow leaves or extreme veination, it's time to feed. And it makes sense, especially if we're growing them in these little plug trays. The soil's going to run out of goodness pretty quickly. I start to feed my plants when the second or third sets of true leaves appear. For most crop varieties, that's going to be around a month after you first seeded them. Any low-dose organic liquid feed will do. If I'm buying one at the store, I try to get one with trace elements and nutrition beyond your simple NPK. They don't need much, and it's quite likely you'll only have to feed your seedlings once, maybe twice before it's time to plant them outside. If you've gone ahead and replanted some of your seedlings into larger pots with a fairly rich potting mix, you can go ahead and skip fertilizing altogether. Like water, with nutrients at this stage, less is more. And our final parameter for bulletproof seedlings is space. As seeds, or even tiny sprouts, we think nothing of them being jam-packed tightly together. It's not an issue, and it saves on space. Once the true leaves catch up to the root system though, it becomes an issue. The plants are now competing for both air and light. Not only that, in some cases, they're actually propping each other up, lending support to their neighboring stems. And as kind as that sounds, it's not good. You're going to create long, lanky, weak specimens that just aren't going to transition well to your garden. There's two ways we can give our plants some space. For individual pots, you can simply move them apart to create air gaps between them. Easy stuff. For mass-seeded plug trays, on the other hand, well, that's not possible. You're going to have to move them onto larger pots. Now, other than tomatoes and possibly eggplants, no plant likes to be replanted. It's a shock to the system, and it can definitely set them back. But if your young plug starts are starting to become really crowded, and they're outgrowing their current digs anyways, well, simply repotting them into a bigger pot might be your only option. It's not hard to do. Let me show you a couple replantings here. For replanting established seedlings, you can use a regular potting mix. It's going to be higher in compost and nutrients. This is good. This is what we want. You can make your own or go the store-bought route. It all depends on your scale and your budget. Square 4-inch pots are the standard if you're doing many starter plants. You'll quickly find that everything, including the 10-20 nursery trays, are designed around using them. Fill them up with your potting mix right to the top. For comparison, here's some 4-inch round pots as well. Not as space efficient, but they'll still get the job done. So if it's all you have, just use them. Pre-soak the soil as always to ensure a smooth transfer. Even though the mix I'm using today is particularly dry, I always pre-soak my soil first, no matter what. It makes it much easier to plant, which you'll see when we make our holes, and it helps to eliminate transplant shock. Let that soil soak up as much water as it can hold. Now, make the holes as big as the plugs. For starters like tomatoes and peppers, plant them as deep as possible. It's really easy to plant this way, even assembly line style. You can do hundreds of plants within an hour. Good stuff. But remember, The only thing we're doing here is increasing the space for the plants. Keep your light, temperature, and all the other conditions the same. If the plants were growing great, if they were growing good enough to become overcrowded, there's no need to change anything. Using this transition to larger pots can buy you more time if the weather outside isn't cooperating. It keeps them growing on a proper trajectory, and when it does come time to plant them outside in the garden, they're pretty much guaranteed to succeed. And really, that's all we want from our Head Start crops. We want to take advantage of those high germination rates that we strive to create, and in turn, create healthy, robust plants that are going to make a good transition into the garden. If you can master this stage of growth and the subsequent transition to planting outside in the garden, then you're almost home free. Observe these 6 parameters and enjoy much greater seedling success this year. Happy growing, guys. Hey, thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate the support more than you know. And if you're getting value from these videos, please like and share them to spread the word and help your fellow gardener to grow better.